Hello guys, this is your friend Shinobi Nexus 2.0 and we are back in new fanfic. What if Naruto became the strongest to protect his sister Part 1? A happy family. Though he could simply teleport home using his signature jutsu, or even a simple shunshin, Namikaze Minato preferred to walk home after a long day at the office, taking in the sight of his beloved village of Konoha. The villagers loved their leader and would greet the young Hokage with a wave or a bow, some even giving him small gifts, such as fresh fruit or some groceries to take home, and he would always greet them back with a smile and a nod or a wave. Anime and manga. The happy faces of the villagers and the visible liveliness of the people throughout the village made the stress of the job bearable, seeing exactly who and what he was working for. However, the highlight of his day always waited for him at the end of his journey home. He opened the door to his house, only to be tackled by a yellow blur. "To-san, you're back," shouted his 7-year-old son Naruto, who looked up to meet Minato's happy gaze with his own bright blue eyes, arms still wrapped around Minato's waist in a hug. The younger Namikaze looked like a miniature clone of Minato, with spiky blonde hair and blue eyes. Naruto pulled his dad inside by his hand before the man could even take off his shoes, and Minato chuckled as he tried to take his shoes off in the midst of his chaotic greeting. "Welcome home, honey." He looked up to be greeted with the brilliant smile of his wife, Uzumaki Kushina, who slowly walked out of the kitchen with a hand on her lower back when she heard the commotion started by Naruto. She looked beautiful with her perfect skin and long red hair, despite being 9 months pregnant, as she was about to give birth to their daughter any day now. Minato placed the bag of fruit that he'd been given by a grateful villager on the table and gave her a small kiss on her lips. He looked into the violet eyes of the love of his life, and all the stress and worries of the day melted away. "So, how was work today?" Kushina asked as she took the young Hokage's signature jacket, a white, short-sleeved jacket which reached down to his calves, emblazoned with the words, Yondaime Hokage, on the back, and red flames at the bottom. "I sent a message to Jiraiya-sensei asking him to be there on the big day for some extra security, and Hiruzen agreed to send Bawako over to be the midwife. I sent Kakashi with some trusted Anbu to look over the location one more time to make sure they didn't miss anything," answered Minato as he sat down on their couch. Kushina looked over to her son, "Naruto, why don't you show your dad the surprise you prepared for him?" "Oh yeah, I forgot all about that. Give me a sec, To-san." Naruto yelled as he scurried over to his room to show his dad his little surprise. When Naruto left the living room to go upstairs, Kushina asked in a quiet, worried tone, "Do you think there'll be any problems?" There weren't so many security measures when Naruto was born. A small frown formed on her face. "Well, I just wanted to be sure. You remember how the seal weakened when you were giving birth to Naruto? I have to focus on maintaining your seal, so the Kyuubi doesn't escape. Really caught me with my pants down last time. I just don't want anything to go wrong when we're all so vulnerable." Minato replied as he tried to assure his wife that everything was fine. Kushina was reassured that everything would be okay when Naruto suddenly came running down the stairs with a drawing in hand. The redhead looked at her excited son with love in her eyes, and a smile reappeared on her face. "Look, To-san, I drew this after the academy today." The young blonde beamed as he proudly showed his drawing to his father. Minato looked at the picture and saw a drawing of Minato and Kushina on the right and left, with Naruto and a small red-haired girl in between them, all holding hands. "Anime and manga. So, this is your sister?" Minato asked as he pointed to the little girl in the picture. "Yup. I have blonde hair and blue eyes just like you, so I thought Narumi should have red hair and violet eyes just like Ka-chan." Minato looked at the picture again and smiled as he ruffled Naruto's hair. "Narumi, huh, is that her name now?" Minato asked, amused. "Yup. Since I'm Naruto, she can be Narumi. The Naru siblings are gonna be the strongest and coolest shinobi in the village." Believe it, Naruto declared with gusto. Minato chuckled at his son's antics and looked to his beautiful wife. Narumi, huh, I like it. Kushina said with a wide smile, and Minato agreed. Minato's stomach growled out loudly as if to also agree, garnering laughter from his boisterous son and wife, as the smell of the ramen in the kitchen entered his nose. Ramen? Minato asked, unable to hide the excitement in his voice. He could be unreadable to almost anyone when he wanted, but to the Uzumaki woman, he was an open book. Kushina simply replied with a knowing smile and went to the kitchen to add the finishing touches to their dinner. Naruto couldn't help but share the excitement and cheer at the news of having the family's favorite meal for dinner and rushed over to set the table and helped fetch things for his pregnant mother. Minato chuckled at the scene as he went to change out of his work clothes and freshen up before dinner. As the family ate their dinner, Minato took a second to look at his wife and child, seeing them inhale their ramen like there was no tomorrow, bringing a small smile to his lips. Though only for a brief second, Kushina caught Minato looking at her. What? Got something on my face? She said, not paying attention to the stray noodle that hung out the corner of her mouth. Minato gave a small chuckle as he pointed to the noodle stuck to her cheek. Got somewhere to go. You're eating like you haven't had ramen in ages. Minato accused jokingly. Hey, I'm eating for two here. Little Narumi wants her share too, ya know. Kushina blurted out in defense, a light blush appearing on her face in embarrassment, as she continued to inhale her ramen, albeit at a more conscious and slightly slower pace. Minato just laughed at the antics of his ramen-loving wife and went back to eating his ramen only to find that Naruto had already finished his adult-sized portions of ramen and was back with seconds. The blonde Hokage couldn't help but wonder if Narumi would love ramen like the rest of her family. Soon after, the Namikaze Uzumaki family settled down to sleep. The couple read Naruto a story and kissed him goodnight. Ka-chan is so much better at doing the voices, too-san. Naruto accused jokingly. Anime and manga. Ha, told ya. Minato. Little Naru-chan has great taste, doesn't he? Kushina cheered as she did a little victory dance. Oh yeah, if you don't like my character impressions, why don't you read your own bedtime stories, mister? Minato said in a defensive tone, pouting in a way that made it clear he was also joking. Maybe I will. When Narumi is born, me and Ka-chan are reading the stories while you check under the bed for Iwa Nin. The 7-year-old boy answered back as he stuck out his tongue. Minato and Kushina chuckled as they turned around to turn off the lights and leave for their own bed. To-san, Ka-chan. Do you think I could share rooms with Narumi when she's born? Naruto suddenly asked, stopping his parents at the door. Sure, I guess. Why all of a sudden? Minato asked. You know babies cry a lot and go to the bathroom in their diapers, right? Kushina warned lightly with a question of her own, though in a not-so-serious manner. I just want to make sure she's okay and protect my baby sister, like you and To-san do for me. I'm gonna be the best big brother. Believe it, the little boy answered back, pumping his fist in the air in declaration. After all, he had been waiting to be a big brother for years now. The two parents looked proudly at their son before looking at each other with a warm smile. Sure thing, sweetie. You're already looking like a great big brother. Thanks, Ka-chan. To-san. I'll keep my promise. I'll make you proud. Promise. Naruto gave his parents a wide smile that almost reached his ears. The Hokage and his wife hugged Naruto and gave their son another goodnight kiss before heading to their own room. As the happy couple lay in their bed, Minato's thoughts on Narumi that started at dinner continued. Seeing him deep in thought, Kushina cupped his cheek before asking, "What's on your mind, honey?" I was just thinking about little Narumi and about how our lives will be in the future. Will she like ramen? Will she have your personality like Naruto? Or will she be more like me? Is Naruto really gonna take my spot as bedtime story reader? The young Hokage mused out loud, somewhat jokingly, as he rubbed his wife's pregnant stomach. I don't know what she'll be like or what she'll like, but one thing I know is that she's gonna be awesome because she's our daughter, she assured him with an embrace, and yes, Naruto is definitely taking your spot as bedtime story reader when Narumi is born. She whispered into Minato's ear with a teasing grin on her face. The blonde Hokage gave a small pout and hmphed, but his small frown turned into a smile as the couple dozed off to sleep. Yes, his daughter would be born into a happy family, and she would be showered in love. He would make sure of that, he thought as he finally fell asleep. A few days later, Minato, my water just broke. The next few hours after that reveal were a blur, as he hurriedly went about preparing for the birth of his daughter. He found himself in a secret cave covered in seals and barriers. His sensei, Jiraiya the Toad Sage, hadn't been able to make it back yet, but he still had protection from the few hand-picked Anbu he trusted that he brought along. He held his wife's hand while keeping an eye on the seal. Anime and manga. ARRRGGHHHH. Curse you, Minato. This is the second time you've done this to me. Kushina yelled out, squeezing the Hokage's hand into what he thought was dust. Minato held back a tear, wondering how his wife was so strong. Of course, honey, he whimpered. I'll treat you to all the ramen you can have after this. Just keep pushing. You're almost there. What do you think I'm doing? And you better not be lying about the ramen. Kushina yelled out as she gave a mighty push. You're almost there. I can see her red hair. The Sandame's wife, Bawako, said, cheering Kushina on as she prepared to receive the baby. Minato continued to hold on to his wife's hand with one hand while maintaining the seal with the other, which was weakening as Kushina grew more and more exhausted. Ah! Kushina gave one last yell as she finally pushed her daughter out into Bawako's waiting arms. Congratulations! She's a healthy girl, Bawako cheerfully said, revealing the swaddled Narumi to her parents for the first time. She's beautiful, the parents of the newborn said in almost a whisper as they shed a tear in happiness. Kushina held her newborn daughter while Minato had his arm around Kushina's shoulder. The happy couple welcomed the newborn into their happy family. All was perfect for a few moments, when they suddenly heard a small gasp from Bawako. When they looked up to look at her, they noticed blood dripping from her mouth as she fell to the floor dead. The Anbu they had for security were scattered around the cave, also dead. What in the? Minato's mind began to race as he quickly looked around to see who was the cause of all of this, when he heard a blood-curdling scream from his wife. His eyes flew over to his wife, who seemed to be fine, but what he saw made his blood run cold. A strange masked man held Narumi with a kunai pointed towards her. Step away from the Jinchuriki, or the girl will live to the ripe old age of 5 minutes. The masked assailant growled out in a threatening tone. Now, let's all be calm here. Minato said in a calm voice, trying to de-escalate the situation. I'm perfectly calm, Yondaime. Now you need to make a decision. Your daughter or the Jinchuriki? Minato stood still, his visage darkening, as his analytical mind began to race through all the possibilities. The masked man suddenly threw the baby into the air, and Minato disappeared from sight before reappearing in a yellow flash to catch his daughter. A small hissing sound came from the bundle he held, and when he looked over, he noticed explosive tags lining the baby's blanket. He quickly unwrapped and threw the trapped blanket far behind him, only just in time, as the blanket exploded behind him. When he looked towards his wife and the masked man, he found them both gone. He teleported to his house using his Hiraishin, to be greeted by Naruto. Narumi. She's finally here, he yelled out, unable to hide his excitement. However, seeing the grim look on his father's face, his excitement began to simmer down. "Tu-san, where's Ka-chan?" Naruto asked, sensing something was off. Minato handed Narumi to Naruto, and placed a hand on his son's shoulders. "Naruto, look after your sister. I don't have much time to explain, but Ka-chan is in danger right now and I need to go. The Yondaime disappeared in a yellow flash, leaving his son confused, worried, and scared. Don't worry Naru-chan, your big brother will protect you. Naruto whispered softly to the crying baby, who seemed to calm down in her brother's embrace. Anime and manga. In a forest clearing, not far from Konoha. The masked man had Kushina bound to an altar as he began to go through some hand seals. Who are you? Why are you doing this? Kushina managed to ask through labored breathing. That is none of your concern. After all, you won't live long after this anyway. The masked man replied, hardly giving her a glance as he continued on with his seals. Minato appeared in a yellow flash next to Kushina, using the Hiraishin beacon seal he had on her. You got here faster than I expected. But then again you're too late. The assailant said in a neutral tone as he finished his last hand seal. The Kyuubi began to emerge from the seal on Kushina, who began to scream in agony. Free at last! The Kyuubi yelled in a deep, booming voice as it finally broke free from Kushina's seal, and she slumped over. The Kyuubi's freedom was not to last long however, as it looked over to the mysterious man who released him from his jailer. You will obey, beast! The masked man shouted out as the eye that was visible from the single eye hole in his mask suddenly revealed a wildly spinning Sharingan. Those eyes! It can't be. No! The Kyuubi shouted out before his eyes glazed over with a Sharingan pattern forming over them. The Kyuubi is mine now. The masked man said before he disappeared with the Kyuubi in a vortex that seemed to appear out of thin air. The blonde Hokage rushed over to his wife as all this took place. Minato, the now former Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi, managed to utter out. Narumi, is she safe? Minato gave her a nod as he took in the utterly exhausted form of the Uzumaki woman. I took her home. Naruto is watching over her, he said as he put his hand around her, preparing to teleport them home. Anime and manga. Naruto was in the living room looking out the window with his sleeping sister in his arms when his parents appeared in front of him in a yellow flash. Ka-chan, he blurted out in relief before taking in the weak and exhausted appearance of his normally strong and boisterous mother. Naruto. Narumi. Thank Kami you're both safe. She cried out, as she rushed over to hug her children, this bit of energy seeming to come out of nowhere. Watch over the kids. I have to go, Minato said with a grim look on his face as he prepared his signature three-prong kunai. Wrapping up his preparations, he gave one last look at his family, who were huddled together in worry and fear. Minato, come back safely. Kushina whispered, a tear streaming down her face. Minato gave her a nod as he vanished in a flash. Right after the masked man disappeared with the Kyuubi. It was another peaceful night for the village of Konoha, with most of its inhabitants sleeping soundly in their homes. All that ended when the Kyuubi was suddenly summoned over the Senju clan compound, crushing many of their homes and killing a majority of the already small remnant that remained of one of Konoha's founding clans. The village was suddenly alive with activity as alarms began to go off, and shinobi began to mobilize in a hurry. Sandaime-sama, a Sarutobi clan Chunin yelled as he stumbled through the door. The Kyuubi. It's escaped. The old man jumped up in surprise, color quickly draining from his face. The Kyuubi. Where? Hiruzen asked as he quickly began to don his black shinobi attire. It's been sighted near the Senju compound. It's destroying everything, the Chunin answered. The Sandaime rushed out ahead while the rest of the Sarutobi clan mobilized its available shinobi, while the young, old, pregnant, and civilian members began to evacuate into their safe house. He couldn't help but worry about his wife Bawako, who was supposed to oversee the birth. The Konoha shinobi tried their best to drive off the nine-tailed Biju, throwing their strongest jutsu at the creature, but the Kyuubi simply brushed them off in annoyance as it continued to destroy everything in sight. The few Senju clan members were the first to encounter the Kyuubi, and used their prowess to stall it until the rest of the village could mobilize. Despite their skill and valor, their numbers began to dwindle, and were now left with an exhausted handful, who still led the charge against the Biju. "Where is the Yondaime?" Hiruzen asked as he arrived on the scene. "We don't know, Sandaime-sama," yelled out a nearby Jonin in response as he blasted out a powerful stream of fire from his mouth. "Nothing seems to be working," a nearby Chunin yelled as she tended to her injured teammate who was dragged out of a destroyed building. "We need to hold it off until the Yondaime arrives. Drive it away towards the edges of the village," the aged former Hokage ordered, with the nearby shinobi following his orders. On top of the Hokage monument, the masked man looked over the village on top of the Hokage monument after he summoned the Kyuubi into the village, to have a better view of the village's destruction. He turned around when he felt a presence. Well, seems like you found me soon enough," the masked man sarcastically commented. "I don't know why you're doing this, but this ends now," Minato declared as he got into his fighting stance. The masked man didn't change his stance, but a chain with a sharp tip dropped from the inside of his right sleeve. Anime and manga. The two stared at each other for a moment before they both blurred into action. The masked man threw his chain at Minato, hoping to entangle him, but Minato dodged the chain with a slight shift to the left as he let loose with his own kunai in retaliation. The kunai hit the mask of the assailant dead in the center, but to his surprise, instead of sticking in with a spray of blood, it simply seemed to go through him. The Hokage stopped in his tracks for a brief second, but that was all the masked man needed to begin his own barrage of projectiles and fists. The Yondaime wasn't classified as an SS-rank ninja for no reason though, and even taken off guard, he was able to dodge the whipping chain as well as the shuriken, and parrying, blocking, or dodging the punches and kicks that came his way. As well as he was defending the masked man's attacks, the blonde shinobi was also unable to get his own offense going, hindered by that strange ability of his opponent which seemed to let all his weapons and punches phase right through his body. Minato's analytical mind was working at full tilt trying to analyze his opponent and trying to work out a strategy. He worked out that the man was using some manner of space-time ninjutsu, one that seemed superior to his. Perhaps he was warping away either the attack or maybe even small parts of his own body as if to appear intangible. However, Minato was sure the masked man was solid, at least at certain moments, as he blocked or parried the assailant's blows. He was sure his opponent had to remain solid or became solid when the man attacked or was in contact with Minato. The masked man put some space between him and the Yondaime, unable to land any significant hits in the last clash. He decided he was going to phase the Hokage into his pocket dimension if he couldn't beat him in a straight fight. The blonde also took the time to get his thoughts together. His mind quickly came up with a strategy as he finished analyzing his enemy. Almost simultaneously, the two blurred towards each other, the masked man planning to phase his opponent away at the slightest touch, while the Yondaime held up his signature kunai in a reverse grip as if to stab. At a distance that was out of reach for the masked man, but still close enough that it would be difficult for anyone to process what they saw and respond accordingly, Minato threw his kunai at his enemy. With the Sharingan, however, the masked man was able to perceive, track, and predict the trajectory of the projectile in time, and allowed the tri-kunai to phase right through his face, leaving him unharmed. The masked man could taste the victory at hand, as he reached out, mere millimeters away from the young Hokage's face. "I win," he yelled out, sure of the success of his attack, when Minato suddenly vanished from sight. Before the masked man could even process what happened, Minato appeared above his back, having flashed to the tri-kunai that he threw through the man's face, as this whole clash took place in the span of a few fractions of a second. Minato struck the masked man with a spinning ball of chakra, his signature move, the Rasengan. Unable to react in time, the masked man took the attack full on, and crashed into the ground, his back shaking with spasms from the agony. Seals formed at the fingertips of the Seal Master Hokage, which he then slammed into the masked man. Your enslavement contract over the Kyuubi is broken, Minato declared as he prepared to finish off his opponent. The masked man was furious, but saw he was beaten, and decided to cut his losses. You were able to analyze and form a strategy against my powers in the short time we fought. Impressive. I suppose your reputation as the Yellow Flash of Konoha is well earned. You win this time, Yondaime, but I'll be back. The man warned as he phased out of existence. The threat of the man who threatened his family dealt with, Minato was able to turn his attention to the village, and the threat the nine-tailed fox posed to it. With the Sandaime and the Kyuubi, the Doden Earth Release users of Konoha tried their best to protect the village and their comrades while funneling the Kyuubi towards a kill zone using their Doryuheki, Mud Wall, while the Suiten Water Release, and Raiden Lightning Release users and Kaden Fire Release, and Futon Wind Release users respectively used their combination jutsu to damage the Kyuubi. Akamichi clansmen used their Baika Jutsu, Body Expansion Jutsu, to match the Kyuubi's size and restrain it, while groups of Nara clansmen tried their hardest to bind the nine-tailed fox with their Kujimane, Shadow Binding, Jutsu. Under the guidance of the Sandaime, who wasn't known as the Professor, or the God of Shinobi, for no reason, their efforts resulted in more success with a more coherent strategy that went beyond just throwing your best jutsu at the Kyuubi and hoping for the best. Success was still limited, however, only managing to briefly hold it in place or driving it towards the edges of the village. The defenders were running out of chakra and were getting exhausted quickly, however. Sandaime-sama, our attacks aren't doing much damage. A nearby Jonin yelled as she swallowed a soldier pill to replenish her dwindling chakra reserves. We must continue to stall and hold out until the Yondaime arrives. Hiruzen answered back while partially sinking the Kyuubi into thick mud with his Yomi Numa, Swamp of the Underworld, jutsu. Where is the Yondaime? Yelled out a different Jonin in desperation as he surveyed the death of his comrades and destruction and mayhem present all around as he took cover behind a broken wall. Food Cart Destroyer rang out with a shout, as a massive toad, which was almost as big as the Kyuubi itself, dropped on top of the Kyuubi, pinning it further into the miry swamp it was trying to escape from. Toad summons. It's Jiraiya. One nearby Chunin yelled out. No, look. It's the Yondaime. We're saved. The Jonin next to him shouted out in relief. The nine-tailed Biju struggled to throw off the giant toad off of its back and get out of the swamp made by the Sandaime's jutsu. In frustration, it began to collect and compress a huge amount of chakra into a black orb in front of its mouth. Bijudama. The Sandaime warned, aware of the massive amount of destructive power it packed. The surrounding shinobi's faces paled in fear as they looked at what they saw as their inevitable doom. The Kyuubi finished charging the massive ball of chakra and fired it right towards the heart of the village, where most of the shinobi were standing, trying to drive it away from the village's center. Hiraishin Durai, Minato called out as he used his jutsu to teleport the massive attack far away from the village. Though the attack had been teleported far from the village, the massive explosion was still visible from where they were, letting the shinobi present know the fate they were spared from due to their Hokage's effort. What do we do now, Hokage-sama? A nearby Jonin asked. The young Hokage's usually warm blue eyes were icy cold as he analyzed the situation with a frighteningly calm mind. There was only one solution to this. Gamabunta. Hold the Kyuubi down for a second. I've got a plan. Hurry, kid. Even I can't hold down the Kyuubi for long. The boss summoned Toad answered back as he struggled to hold down an angry Biju. Minato disappeared in a yellow flash. Meanwhile, at the Namikaze Uzumaki household, Kushina could see the fighting and destruction that was taking place in the village from the window of her living room. Having gone through the destruction of her home village of Uzushiogakure, the hidden whirlpool, as a child, she feared the destruction that seemed to be looming ahead once again. Anime and manga. Naruto. She called out. Yes, Ka-chan. came the quiet response of her usually loud son. Remember the sealing technique your 2-san and I taught you a few weeks ago? Yeah, what about it? Replied her 7-year-old son. I want you to take our biggest sealing scrolls and go to the basement and seal all of the scrolls we have down there. All of them, even that huge scroll on the pedestal in the middle that 2-san told me to never touch. He asked, confused by the seemingly strange thing his mother asked of him. Yes, sweetie, seal the scroll of seals, Ka-chan's sword, and all the photos we have as well. Naruto was confused at his mother's strange request, but due to the strange circumstances and the urgency masked beneath his mother's sweet tone, he didn't ask any more questions as he ran off to do as his mother asked. Kushina held Narumi close to her chest as she softly stroked her daughter's cheek with her thumb. Half an hour later, Naruto came back to the living room with 3 huge scrolls in his arms, his small frame barely able to hold them. I'm back, Ka-chan. Here are the scrolls like you asked. He reported as he wiped some of the residual sealing ink off of his fingers. Thank you, sweetie. Kushina replied before placing Narumi on her lap to hold Naruto's cheeks with both hands. Honey, I know you're scared, but just listen to everything I have to say before you say anything. Okay, she asked with a calm voice. Naruto simply nodded. Kushina gave him a small kiss on his forehead before continuing. She took his small hands into one of hers as her other arm was used to hold Narumi again. The village is under attack from a bad man with a mask, and he took the fox that was sealed inside your Ka-chan out, and now that fox is destroying the village. Naruto's blue eyes widened in shock. But 2-san will be able to stop it, right? He's the strongest ninja in the village. Naruto asked, trying to get some measure of assurance. Kushina gave her son a sad smile. Maybe. Truth is, I don't know. He's able to take down any shinobi, but a biju is a mass of chakra given sentience. It can't really be killed. The blonde boy's voice began to shake in fear. Does that mean it's unstoppable? What will happen to 2-san then? Naruto began to fear for his father's safety. I said it can't be killed. It can be stopped. The Uzumaki woman pointed out. Being a mass of chakra, it can still be sealed away. Like it was when it was sealed in me to prevent it from hurting others. The way I sealed away our scrolls and pictures? Naruto asked, still trying to understand the situation, but feeling a slight bit of hope. Yes, exactly like that. It's a little more complicated than a simple storage seal though. The red-haired woman chuckled, masking her exhaustion. Anyway, I have faith that your 2-san will come up with a way to stop the fox, but I want to make sure you and Narumi are okay if anything goes wrong. What do you mean? Naruto asked, sensing there was an underlying message. A message he could guess, but tried his hardest to deny. Naruto, only your 2-san and I are able to stop the fox. If, and I mean if, anything happens to us, I want you to promise me something. No, nothing's gonna happen to you. You're not going anywhere. I'll protect you, Ka-chan. Naruto yelled out in denial as the held-back tears began burst forth. Kushina's facade of calm began to break at her son's outburst, and her voice began to shake a little. Honey, we're not going anywhere. I'm just saying just in case, okay? Remember that promise you made to me and your 2-san a few days ago? About being the best big brother and protecting Narumi. Naruto sniffled as he replied. Yes, Ka-chan. He managed through held-back sobs. Good. I know I'm asking you to be a big boy stuff here. But you can do this for your Ka-chan, right? Yes, Ka-chan, the blonde boy replied. Good. Hopefully everything will be okay, but I'm asking just in case. Now give me your arm. Ka-chan is gonna show you a new kind of storage seal, okay? Naruto gave her a small nod in response. Okay. Can you bring Ka-chan's sealing kit? She asked, and Naruto went to his parents' room and brought her sealing kit. A few moments later his left forearm was covered in sealing arrays in kanji. Fuin. Kushina yelled and the three massive sealing scrolls disappeared into the seal on Naruto's arm. If anyone ever asks where our things went, tell them they got destroyed when the Kyuubi attacked, okay? Naruto didn't really understand why his mom was telling him all these strange precautions, but he nodded in agreement anyway. Thank you for being so brave, sweetie. Kushina told Naruto in a sweet voice as she gave him a kiss on the forehead again. Moments later, Minato flashed into the living room. Kushina, I need your help. I thought about it and there's only one way to stop the Kyuubi. Minato said while looking sadly at his family who were huddled together on the couch, particularly at Narumi who was sleeping in her mother's arms. Kushina understood what he was talking about and caught his gaze on Narumi. Does it have to be her? Can't you seal it back into me? Kushina asked, her voice trembling. She's the only who can handle it, with your Uzumaki blood running dominantly through her veins, and a chakra network that's flexible enough to handle the chakra. If we sealed it into you, you'd die. Minato explained, though he himself was torn at what he was about to do to save his village. Please Kushina, we don't have time. The weary Hokage begged. Though she hated the idea with every fiber of her being, she saw there were no other options, and reluctantly agreed. Naruto understood parts of the conversation, being the smart little boy he was, and offered his service. You're going to seal that big bad fox away, right? Let me help. You said yourself that I was really good at sealing. Anime and manga. Sweetie, you're a prodigy in sealing for your age, way better than your 2-san or even I was at your age. But something like the Kyuubi is gonna take a really complex seal that's beyond your level, ya know. Kushina told Naruto. Well, if I can't do the sealing, can't you seal that fox into me instead? Even sealing those scrolls into me hurt a little. I can't let Narumi go through the pain of having something huge like the fox sealed into her. The parents were proud of their son's selfless actions, but had to let him down nonetheless. Minato got down to one knee to look at Naruto at eye level. He knew when he left, he would never see his son again. Sochi, I am proud of you. You're a kind, sweet, selfless boy, who's already wiser and more responsible than people 3 times your age. I'm already happy with how you've grown up, and I know you'll grow up to be even better. I know you'll be a greater man and shinobi than I am. Take care of your mother and your sister, alright? I'm asking you to be the man of the house now. Be strong for your 2-san. I love you, son. Why are you talking like that? Why are you talking like you'll never see me again? You're gonna go seal that stupid fox into Narumi and come right back with Ka-san, right? Naruto asked nervously with terror at his eyes. I'm sorry, Naruto, was all Minato could say as he gave his son his final kiss on his forehead. He then placed his hands on Kushina who held Narumi. No, don't leave. Don't leave me all by myself. Naruto cried out, tears streaming from his eyes as he leapt towards the rest of his family who vanished in a flash of yellow. With the Kyuubi broke free from Gamabunta's hold and continued to wreak havoc, though Gamabunta and the shinobi led by Hiruzen were able to limit the damage somewhat. The Yondaimes and the passengers of his Hiraishin appeared briefly on the Kyuubi before vanishing again, taking the Kyuubi with them. The Kyuubi, it's gone. The Yondaime saved us. The shinobi cheered all around. Hiruzen was relieved at the disappearance of the Biju, but had a bad feeling at the pit of his stomach he couldn't ignore. The Kyuubi and the Yondaime's family reappeared at the altar outside the village where Kushina had the tailed beast extracted. The Hokage and his wife realized their son had unwittingly tagged along by holding on to his mother at the last second. Naruto, what have you done? Don't you see the danger you've gotten yourself into? His mother yelled, fearing for his safety. Naruto choked back his tears. I didn't want to be left all alone while you and 2-san went to die. The surprised parents didn't have time to respond as the Kyuubi realized where he was and began to attack. Kushina used her special chakra to form multiple golden chains which shot out from her back. Kongo Fusa. Adamantine sealing chains, she yelled out as her chains wrapped around the Kyuubi and began to suppress its chakra. Minato. Hurry. I don't have much chakra left. Kushina wheezed out, exhausted after giving birth, and having the tailed beast ripped out of her. Anybody else would have died, but the Uzumaki's strong life force and chakra amazingly kept her alive. Minato nodded and flew through the hand seals necessary. Shiki Fujin. Death Reaper seal, he yelled out as he completed his hand seals. Unseen to anyone but Minato, the terrifying figure of the Shinigami appeared behind Minato, who then proceeded to stick its hands through Minato's back and out of his chest. It reached out and took a hold of the Biju, who was bound by the Uzumaki sealing chains, and the Kyuubi finally saw the Shinigami as well. Minato took Narumi from Kushina's arms, and drew the 8 trigram sealing array onto her stomach. He realized the Kyuubi had way too much chakra to seal into her, and decided to seal half of the Biju's chakra into himself. The Shinigami split the Kyuubi into yin and yang halves, and sealed the yin half into Minato, while sealing the yang half into Narumi. The Kyuubi began to shrink as its chakra began to be absorbed. Realizing what was happening, the Kyuubi desperately tried to prevent being imprisoned again. No. Curse you Yondaime. I will not be imprisoned again by you pathetic insects. The Kyuubi yelled out as he tried to stab Narumi with its claw, using the looseness of the chains from the Kyuubi shrinking as an opening. Minato and Kushina jumped in front of the claw to protect their daughter, and the claw pierced both of them, but stopped short of reaching Narumi before it was completely sealed away. Blood began to pour out their mouths and the hole in their stomach. They fell to their knees and began to cough up blood. Naruto, who had taken refuge behind a rock during the whole ordeal, watched everything take place and ran out to his parents. No. To-san. Ka-chan. He yelled out as he reached his parents who were bleeding out. Na Naruto, the dying parents managed to cough out. No. This can't be happening. I can't lose the both of you. How are me and Narumi gonna live without you? Naruto cried out as tears burst forth uncontrollably. The hearts of the parents broke watching their beloved son break down and realizing their children would grow up as orphans. They knew Minato wouldn't live past this night, but they hadn't expected this turn of events, where Kushina would die as well. In a single night, the picture-perfect family would be shattered forever. She had no regrets however, as she gave her life to protect Narumi. Sweetie. Come here to your Ka-chan. Anime and manga. Naruto went over to his mother, who placed her bloody hand on his cheek. Remember what Ka-chan told you earlier? He weakly nodded in response. Good. I didn't want things to go like this, but bad things happen sometimes. I need you to be strong. Be strong for To-san and Ka-chan, okay? Most importantly, be strong for Narumi. Naruto could only nod as his voice caught at his throat. Thank you, Naruto, thank you for being so brave and so strong. Thank you for being Ka-chan's little sweetheart, always helping out where you could. Most of all, thank you for being my son. I'm so proud of you and I love you more than words can express, ya know. Naruto embraced his mother, not worrying about the blood that covered his clothes now. I'm sorry you had to see all this, son. But I'm glad I can spend my last moments with my beautiful family. Minato began as Naruto went over to hug his father. Minato placed a hand on Naruto's shoulder. Naruto, things will be tough from now on, and regrettably we won't be able to help you. But we'll always be there with you in your heart. Be strong. Be strong for us and be strong for your sister. She's all you have left now, and you're all she'll have. Be there for each other and help each other always, okay? Naruto nodded as tears flowed freely. My sensei Jiraiya, your godfather, and Hiruzen should look out for you. You'll have access to our bank accounts so you should be alright financially as well. Kakashi will probably come by once in a while to check on you. I'm sorry things have come to this, my son, but I know you'll be able to handle it. You're stronger and smarter than you know, Naruto. I have faith in you. Kushina, say your last words to Narumi. I'm going to seal what remains of our chakra into her seal so we can see her again in the future. Minato told Kushina. My sweet baby Narumi, happy birthday. I'm so happy I at least got to spend a few hours with you. Make sure you eat healthy, and wash every day. Make sure you study hard and make a lot of friends too. Find a good man like your Chan or your brother, and don't get entangled with some weird guy, okay? I wish I could be there to see your first steps. To make your first bowl of ramen. To take you on your first day at the academy. I wish I could be there on your wedding day. I'm sorry I won't be there to watch you grow up. But I'll be watching over you from heaven. Ka-chan loves you, sweetheart. I love you and Naruto more than anything this world. Thank you for letting me be your Ka-chan sweetheart. Make sure you listen to your brother, okay? Don't give him a hard time. He's a sweet boy and I know he'll do his best to take care of you. Look out for each other, okay? Most importantly, be happy, Narumi. I wish I had more time to spend with you. She looked over to Minato to let him know it was his turn. Your mother pretty much said everything I wanted to say. I'm not so good with my words the way your Ka-chan is, but know that your San loves you very much. I'm sorry I had to seal the Kyuubi into you, but I had no choice. I know you'll be able to handle it, because you're our daughter. You're a hero the day you were born, huh? Guess that makes you better than me already. He chuckled quietly. Be happy and grow up strong, Narumi. No matter what you do with your life, your San and Ka-chan will be proud of you. We'll always be with you in your heart. Listen to your brother Narumi. He'll always have your back. Trust each other and protect each other. The two dying shinobi gave their kids one last kiss and sealed the rest of their chakra into Narumi's seal, while Minato also sealed a small bit of his chakra into Naruto as well, and proceeded to breathe their last in an embrace with their two children, who looked just like them. They fell together with a smile on their face, the two lovers leaving this world surrounded by the two people they loved most. Hiruzen, some trusted Anbu, Kakashi, and Jiraiya finally arrived, to witness the last breath of their beloved successor, leader, sensei, and student. Naruto took Narumi in his arms, both children covered in the blood of their parents, tears clearing a line through the blood caked on Naruto's face. No, Hiruzen whispered. We were too late. The two older shinobi hung their heads in shame. Their successor gave his life to seal the Kyuubi. They both thought it should have been them instead. If only we had been a little faster, they thought simultaneously. No, no, sensei. Kakashi cried out, grabbing his head with his hands as yelled into the sky. The sensei who he thought of as a father, and the woman who treated him warmly as if she was his mother, both lay dead with a giant hole going through their torsos, leaving their organs visible for all to see, surrounded in a pool of blood. The other shinobi were also distraught to see their beloved leader dead, and all went silent, save for the sound of people quietly crying. Hiruzen noticed the two children and walked over to them. He gave them a warm, reassuring smile. Naruto. Come here, my boy. Having met the old man many times in the past, he trusted him and walked over to him with his sister in his arms. This is your sister? Hiruzen asked, studying the intricate seal that was on the baby. He had realized what had happened. This was the new Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. Naruto gave him a small nod. This is Narumi, he said uncharacteristically quietly. I see. Let me or Jiraiya hold on to her while we get you cleaned up. The aged former Hokage offered as he reached out to receive Narumi. No, Naruto said with conviction. I'll hold on to her. We'll get cleaned up together. He didn't want to part with the last remaining member of his family no matter what. I see. Good to see you so responsible at a young age. We'll all head to the village. You can hold on to Narumi. We'll just carry you instead. Hiruzen told Naruto warmly. You carry the Hokage and his wife, and you carry Naruto. Hiruzen ordered the Anbu as they began to head back to the village. Kakashi was shaken visibly, and his shoulders were slumped the whole way back. Jiraiya, however, took the death of his prized student to hardest. He had always thought of Minato as a son and friend more than a student. Seeing him killed in such a brutal way and all the blood that was spilled from him shook him to his core, despite being a seasoned shinobi who had been through many battles and even a couple wars. It was always different when it was someone you cared about. The sight of Naruto covered in the blood of Minato seared into his mind, a sight that would always remind him of his loss and failure. Anime and manga. The next day, the Konoha ruling council gathered the next morning for a council meeting to assess the situation, and to make plans moving forward. The clan heads took their seat, a few new faces amongst their number, and a few faces missing. All had some degree of injury on them. The 10 civilian council members took their seat on the opposite side of the U-shaped table, and the 3 elders of Konoha took their place at a separate table that was to the left of the Hokage's seat, which remained empty, at the head of the U-shaped table. "Where's Hokage-sama?" a council member asked another. The clan heads also wondered the same thing, looking around to see if anyone knew anything. "He was never late to meetings." "Quiet," the Sandaime ordered, as he entered the council meeting room. He walked over to the Hokage's seat in his old Hokage robes, and took a seat. "Sandaime-sama, where is the Yondaime?" Nara Shikaku asked the former Hokage. "The Yondaime and his wife passed away last night fighting the Kyuubi." Hiruzen sadly informed a shocked council. "It can't be, Minato-sama, dead." The council members could not hide their shock and sadness. Their village lay in ruins, and their powerful and beloved leader was gone, never to return. "With the death of the Yondaime, I will be taking the hat as the Hokage again, until I find a worthy successor." Any objections? None had any objections, realizing they needed strong leadership who had the experience they needed to get this village through this crisis. All except Shimura Danzo, Hiruzen's old teammate from back in the Second Shinobi War. He had always thought he would be a better Hokage for the village, considering himself the only person who knew and was able to do the hard things that needed to be done to keep Konoha at the top of the pecking order. His old teammate was too soft. He kept his opinion to himself, however, knowing it would be unwise to have a succession crisis compounding to the already dangerous situation that lied ahead for Konoha. Despite being unpopular amongst many of the shinobi for being shady, even by shinobi standards, and for being a warmonger, nobody would deny the man's love for Konoha. "So how bad are our losses?" Hiruzen asked, trying to assess the situation. "We've lost around 20% of our shinobi forces. A majority of them being Jonin. The Senju clan was also wiped out." Shikaku reported with regret, explaining why the Senju seat remained empty. "The Shadaime and Nadaime's clan, wiped out," several civilian council members sighed in disbelief. "Their sacrifice was what bought us time to organize any kind of defense. The Kyuubi appeared right in their compound and hit them first. They fought valiantly, and led our defense until Sandaime-sama appeared." Shikaku reported. Next, a civilian councilman gave their report. The civilian and industrial sector of the village was also hit hard. "We've lost a majority of our workshops, and our manufacturing capacity is running at 10% until we can get emergency repairs in, which would still only raise it to around 30% after 2 weeks of repair." Another council member gave their report. "Not as many as shinobi, but there have been many civilian deaths as well, many of them skilled workers and important pieces of our administrative and economic system. Half our businesses are closed." A different civilian councilman gave a report on the damages done to the infrastructure. "Thousands of homes were destroyed. The academy and hospital are also badly damaged. The village walls are surprisingly unharmed, but the damages done to our roads, water and electric systems, and overall infrastructure is honestly catastrophic. I'd estimate the damages to be around 500 billion ryo at the least." Shikaku added to the depressing report. "With many of our shinobi dead and injured, our capacity to carry out missions will be reduced to about 70% of what we are normally able to do. Unacceptable. We must present a strong face to the world. Hiruzen told the council. We can't afford to look weak and tempt an attack on the village while we are vulnerable. Moreover, we need the revenue from missions to repair and rebuild our village. Missions must be carried out at the same capacity. The rest period in between missions will be reduced for the time being. Any retired Jonin and Chunin that are still capable should be encouraged to come out of retirement. All available genin will only receive missions regarding the rebuilding of the village. The council nodded in agreement. They couldn't appear to be weak right now and they needed every single last ryo they could get their hands on, and even more. The shinobi would need to endure for the sake of their village. Hokage-sama, a councilman asked. Even if we use all the money in the emergency funds and even empty our treasury, and receive generous donations from each clan, we will still be short at least 200 billion ryo. People will be sleeping in makeshift tents without running water or electricity for at least a year before we can provide them with new homes, and this is assuming we prioritize homes first. If not, they might have to wait up to 3 years. Hiruzen could feel a massive headache coming his way. The village was, to put it simply, in deep shit. He closed his eyes and pinched the bridge of his nose to deal with the pain, but also to think about what to do next. What happened to the Kyuubi, Hiruzen? Danzo asked. The Sandame's headache worsened. Didn't the Yondaime kill the beast? A civilian council member asked. The Kyuubi is a mass of sentient, malevolent chakra. One cannot simply kill such a creature. Danzo corrected the civilian council members. The Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi away. We are safe from the beast once more. Hiruzen stated, trying to be as vague as possible about where it was sealed. Where, or should I say, who was the Kyuubi sealed into, Hiruzen? Danzo asked. Of course, that slimy bandaged old rival of the Sandame would bring it back into focus. The Sandame opened his eyes and took a pause to gather his thoughts as he looked at the council. The Yondaime sealed the Kyuubi into his own child. You mean Naruto-kun is the new Jinchuriki? Uchiha Fugaku asked. He had always liked the boy. He had been a good friend to his son, and seemed to be the only person who could make his son Itachi act his age. Kushina had been best friends with his wife Makoto, and visited with Naruto often. Being the son of the Yondaime as well, he was a well-known and well-liked face in the Uchiha compound. Inu. Bring in the children. Sarutobi Hiruzen ordered. Kakashi escorted in the 2 orphans of the Yondaime. Naruto carrying Narumi in his arms. They hadn't been able to separate the older boy from his sister ever since they brought them back to the village. Naruto kept his mouth shut, remembering his father's advice on staying silent and keeping your ears open, and to never reveal your stance or your cards until you were ready to reveal it. Uzumaki Kushina gave birth to a daughter last night. Namikaze Uzumaki Narumi. She is the new Jinchuriki of the Kyuubi. The old Sarutobi reluctantly revealed. There was a brief silence as the members of the council took in the news, before chaos ensued. What will we do if the Kyuubi breaks free again? We don't have the Yondaime anymore. That thing killed the Senju clan. We must get revenge. We must kill the Jinchuriki so the beast can never escape again. The beast is unstable. We must lock up the Kyuubi brat so it never sees the light of day. What are we doing keeping a ticking time bomb in our own village? Who knows when it'll escape again? Callous comments were thrown around the council room, driven by fear and desire for vengeance on what they saw was responsible for their losses. That foreign Uzumaki bitch is responsible for all of this. I knew she was trouble when she seduced our beloved Yondaime. A certain pink-haired councilwoman yelled out in a shrill voice. Civilian and shinobi alike had suffered terrible losses, and fears for their safety and madness at their loss clouded their better judgment. The shinobi side of the council were able to keep a slightly more level head, but they knew the true power of the Kyuubi, which spurred many of them to make their own hurtful suggestions, fearing for the worst. Each assumed they suffered the worst losses and disregarded the presence of the two children who had just lost their parents before their very eyes, the night before. Silence. The Sandaime yelled out in a booming voice which was reinforced by chakra. He also released a pulse of powerful killing intent which added to the effect of silencing everyone. The Yondaime sacrificed his own life to save this village, and this is how you treat his legacy. He wanted his daughter to be seen as a hero who protects the village from the Kyuubi, not as some trash to dispose. The old man's hands were shaking with fury. Now, unless someone has any real suggestions on what should be done regarding this matter, I want to hear no more. Any talks of killing the child will be met with lashes and imprisonment. The old Hokage put his foot down on the topic. Calmer, more crafty minds began to work at full pace. Kill the Jinchuriki. Those fools. Why get rid of such a powerful asset? Surely, they couldn't see past their own noses if they couldn't see the opportunities the child provided. A quiet, yet firm voice cut through the silence following the Hokage's display of fury. I'll be responsible for the child. Everyone turned to look at the owner of the voice. I'll take care of the child and train her. Shimura Danzo continued. So you can train her as one of your mindless weapons? I don't think so. Hiruzen was quick to dismiss that idea. A weapon of the village, a shield of the village, a guardian of the village. Does it matter what we call it? These are matters of semantics. Like it or not, she is a Jinchuriki, and has potential to be one of our strongest assets. Other villages all have Jinchurikis as weapons and deterrents. Even that little backwater town of Takigakure, who has the gall to call themselves a village. Danzo pointed out. The sitting-in for the new Sarutobi clan head and son of the Sandaime, Sarutobi Asuma, spoke up. Konoha never needed a Jinchuriki as a weapon in the past to be seen as the strongest village. Konoha never had this kind of death and destruction wreaked on her home soil before. Konoha never lost 20% of their experienced shinobi force overnight before, and Konoha never lost their strongest shinobi without any clear successors before either. We are in a state of unprecedented danger, and we need all the assets and deterrents we can get. Danzo pointed out. Many of the civilian council members agreed with Danzo's points. The shinobi knew there was some truth to what he was saying, but they also knew the real motives and implications behind his logic. Each of them had lost members of their clan to be inducted into his secret root Anbu, who had all personality and emotions wiped, and were made to be blindly loyal to Danzo. Don't think we are unaware of how you train your subordinates, Danzo. The training methods you use will be more detrimental for a case like Narumi, who will need to learn how to be in tune with her emotions. No, she will grow up as a normal child, not as a weapon. The Sandaime rejected Danzo's offer. Gaining the Jinchuriki was most likely a move to strengthen his own position in the village. The girl would be useless as an asset for the next 10 years at least, and that was the period of greatest danger for the village. It was a move for power masked behind a thin veneer of urgency, and many of the smarter or more insightful clan heads knew it. 2, or more, could play that game. Hokage-sama, perhaps she could be adopted by the Uchiha clan. She'll have a safe environment to grow up as a normal child, with a family. Her mother was a close friend of my wife, and the Uchiha clan can guarantee her safety and training. The Uchiha clan head suggested. Though he was somewhat fond of Naruto, he had no such feelings for the Jinchuriki. She was, however, a valuable asset as Danzo pointed out, and any clan who had control of the Kyuubi would become that much more powerful and influential in the village. His rival, Hyuga Hiashi, was quick to shut down his suggestion. Adopt the girl as an Uchiha. Who's to say this isn't simply a ploy to bind the girl to your clan so you can control her and the Kyuubi? Don't think nobody noticed the projection of the Sharingan on the Kyuubi's eyes either. Fugaku growled at the accusation. No, the girl cannot be adopted by any clan. She is one of the last of her clan in any case. She should be under the custody of the village, until at least her brother is of age, or reaches Chunin status. Hiyashi stated. The two now most powerful clans divided the council into two camps. One side was for the adoption of the Kyuubi Jinchuriki, while the other side agreed that the girl should be under the custody of the village. With the accusation of controlling the Kyuubi, and the coincidental demise of their rival clan, the Senju clan, many began to see the Uchiha as being suspicious. Even if the girl was to be adopted, the Uchiha were out of the running for adoption of the girl. With the position of adopting the girl now seen as a move for power due to Danzo and Fugaku's bid for her custody, many of the shinobi clans were deterred from adopting her, and voted for the second option. The girl would be under custody of the village. It's decided then. The girl will be raised by the village as a normal girl until she decides to become a shinobi. Hiruzen concluded. He had hoped she would be adopted by Jiraiya or another clan that had her best interest at heart, but the discussion had taken a bad turn when the Uchiha brought up the adoption first. Perhaps he should have had the Sarutobi clan adopt her. It was too late now, however. Hiruzen glanced over to Jiraiya in disappointment, both at the Toad Sage, and at himself. Jiraiya was present at the meeting in the capacity as an observer, an honor he was given for his reputation as one of the legendary Sannin, and for his long, illustrious service to the village. He wasn't there to be an active participant in the discussions that take place. However, that hadn't stopped him in the past from giving his own 2 cents, quite strongly at times. He was uncharacteristically quiet today as his mind was elsewhere. He couldn't help but dwell on the death of his student. Minato was supposed to be the child of prophecy. The chosen one. Even if he didn't always like to admit it publicly, he knew, and was secretly proud of the fact, that Minato was stronger than him. The villagers loved him, and he loved the village. He was the perfect Hokage. And now he was dead. Another reason the Toad Sage took his blonde student's death so hard was because he felt he could have helped if he had been earlier. Narumi was born 3 days earlier than scheduled. Jiraiya had assumed he had plenty of time on his way back to the village. He stopped by Tanzaku-gai, a notorious gambling village, which was also known for other pleasures it offered, namely women and alcohol. Flashback. He had stopped by to get some info from his contact in his spy network who was stationed at a brothel. Since he was there already, he decided to have a little fun before heading to Konoha. He had plenty of time after all. A little fun wouldn't hurt anyone. He spent a little over a day at the town of pleasure, enjoying himself until later that night when he woke up next to his companion for the night when he had a terrible dream. He came outside for some fresh air and to clear his head when he faintly sensed a massive amount of vile chakra, and saw thick plumes of smoke from the direction of Konoha. His heart fell to his stomach as he tried to hurry over to Konoha. For some reason he was unable to summon Gamabunta, who would have been able to get him over to Konoha the fastest. So, he did his best to get over to Konoha as fast as he could on his own. By the time he arrived to Konoha, the death and destruction in the village was shockingly obvious. He could see the academy he had studied in with its roof caved in, half the building collapsed. He could see the park where he had tried to woo Tsunade many times before, scorched, and the tree he liked to write his book under, completely ripped from the ground by the roots. Dead bodies, some of them familiar faces, were strewn around like leaves in autumn. He was taking in the damage done to his village when he saw his sensei, Sarutobi Hiruzen, rushing by him with small squad of Anbu, searching desperately for something. Sensei. What in Kami's name is going on here? Jiraiya asked as he fell into line in a run behind the Sarutobi. The Kyuubi. It's broken loose from Kushina's seal. Minato teleported it away from the village, but I fear what he's planning to do. Hiruzen yelled back as he continued to run. I'll use my sage mode to sense where he is. Jiraiya shouted as he summoned the Toad Sages, Fukasaku and Shima. Ma. Pa. The Kyuubi broke loose. I don't have time to explain more. I need to go into sage mode so I can find Minato. Jiraiya told the Toad Sages in desperation. Got it, Jiraiya-chan. They yelled as the fused to his shoulders and began taking in nature chakra. Jiraiya underwent his sage transformation, small changes taking place such as growing warts on his nose or having red lines appear under his eyes. In his sage mode he was able to locate and lead the Sandaime and his squad to the grove where Minato was. He arrived just in time to see the life leave his student's eyes, blood splattered everywhere. His were fixed on his student. He could see all the details, blood dripping from Minato's young, handsome face, a massive hole in his torso spilling out his organs. His tunnel vision preventing from seeing the children who just lost everything. When he finally noticed Naruto and Narumi, all he could see was a miniature carbon copy of his dear student. Covered in blood and grim look on his face. Jiraiya couldn't see the boy who was scared and needed to be comforted. All he saw was the face of Minato staring at him with contempt, disappointed that he came so late. Too late to make a difference. He and Hiruzen knew the Death Reaper seal as well. It should have been one of them to make the sacrifice. Now his student was gone, and all he had was his fake copy, who only served to remind him of his loss and failures. End flashback. The Sandaime waited briefly, looking at his student to see if he had anything to add. Jiraiya merely kept his gaze outside the window, oblivious to all that went around him. Oblivious to his sensei's gaze, hoping the Sannin would speak up and claim his status as godfather. Oblivious to the look of desperation on Naruto's face. He was too caught up in his own problems. The meeting ended a couple hours after, with everyone going to take care of their own responsibilities and try to salvage their village from the destruction it faced. The Sandaime would have, and wanted to do more for his successor's orphans, but the village was in a really, really bad position. He had too much on his mind right now, and forgot about the two kids. Jiraiya couldn't handle being in the village and left as quickly as he could. It was just too much pain for him. Soon the council meeting room was empty, save for two people. Naruto collapsed onto the floor on his butt, with Narumi in his arms. The people his father said would look out for him abandoned them in their own grief. He couldn't believe the way the people talked about getting rid of his last remaining family member. He couldn't believe how they didn't see her as a person, a baby, but as a demon, and the people who didn't see her as a demon simply saw her as an asset to be used. The people who used to buy him treats and smile at him, the same people who used to look up to his father like he was Kami's gift, now turned their backs on his children. In truth, the council members saw a lot of Minato in Naruto and saw him as the Yondaime's legacy. He even looked just like him. They liked him and saw a lot of potential to be great in him. Nobody really said anything bad about him and even discussed ways they could support the Yondaime's heir. Naruto, however, couldn't understand the duplicity, the two-faced nature of the council. To him, turning your back on Narumi meant turning your back on him. What made him so different from his sister? His hair color. Being a boy? No. Him and Narumi were in this together. If he got to live in a mansion, so would she. If she was sent to an orphanage, he would share her fate. His rose-tinted view of the village and the world was broken after that meeting. His trust would be hard to earn, and near impossible to regain once broken. He would make the arrogant council who decided the fate of his sister with such callousness, see that they messed up. As for that self-centered, perverted, and utterly unreliable old fool who dared to call himself Naruto's godfather. If he didn't want to be a part of the lives of Naruto and Narumi, then so be it. Naruto would oblige him. Naruto was a changed person after that fateful council meeting. He knew there was no one he could rely on, and he was the only person his baby sister could rely on. He also remembered how the council said he'd have to come of age, or become a chunin to gain sole custody of his sister. The blonde boy realized he'd have to become strong, and quickly too. A heavy burden was placed on his small shoulders, but he'd keep his promise to his parents no matter what. Narumi was going to grow up safely, and if people wanted to get in the way, they'd have to face his wrath. The village needed more shinobi as soon as possible, so the academy was at the top of the list for emergency repair funding. As such, the academy was back to a semi-functional state by the end of the month. Despite living in makeshift tents or hastily patched up shells of their former homes, parents were happy at the academy's recommencement. They needed to get their kids out of their hair and occupy them while they worked on rebuilding. As for Naruto and Narumi, they were placed at an orphanage, as their home had caught fire in the Kyuubi's attack. It made Naruto's secret possession of their clan's treasured sealing techniques and artifacts, as well as the scroll of seals, easier to cover up. The council tried to gain the Yondaime's scrolls on techniques and sealing for the village, but were unable to find anything other than ashes. They were still able to squeeze something out of the two children, however. Custody of the children of the Yondaime meant they had control over their finances as well. The Namikaze Uzumaki family had an enormous fortune, from Minato's many S-rank missions and Hokage's pay, and Kushina's inheritance from the Uzumaki clan. They weren't as rich as some of the bigger clans like the Hyuga clan, but as individuals, they were amongst the top 5 richest in the village. Now the council wasn't necessarily full of evil people who loved to extort helpless children. They were no Gado. However, the village was strapped for cash, and people were suffering from the damages. People slept in makeshift tents, which formed slums, and access to clean water was limited as well. The damages to the economic engines of the village meant people had less jobs, less money, and as a result, less patience and fortitude to deal with the stress. The crime rates soared, and the Uchiha military police force was stretched thin trying to contain the rise in crimes, while still trying to do missions to make money for the village. With such dire circumstances, the council was desperate for more money. It just so happened they had access to one of the biggest fortunes in Hai no Kuni, Land of Fire. It's not like they immediately rushed to that source of Ryo either. They actually left it alone for a couple months. However, when things were looking so bad, they couldn't help but turn their eyes to the Namikaze Uzumaki inheritance. The needs of 2 kids couldn't stack up against the needs of the entire village. Besides, 2 kids couldn't possibly need that much money. At least that's what they told themselves. But they never dipped into their own funds. After all, they would need that money to take care of their own families. The quality of life for Naruto and Narumi took a quick turn for the worse once the village started quietly dipping into their inheritance. Their food and clothes slowly declined in quality, until it finally became the standard drab clothing, barely a step above rags, that was supplied to orphans or homeless people. Naruto realized what was happening, but knew as he was right now, he was powerless to do anything about it. That didn't stop him from doing what he could to provide better living conditions for Narumi. He scrounged around for food, often foraging in the nearby forests for fruits or edible mushrooms, and once he became more skilled at wielding kunai and shuriken, starting hunting small game. No sister of his would grow up malnourished. He sold small pelts and herbs to the villagers to make a little pocket money, which he spent to get Narumi some higher quality clothing, milk formula, diapers, and other small things like toys. He also began to train like a boy possessed. His father had been stronger than anyone else in Konoha, and still failed in some ways, to protect their children. He failed to protect them from the dangers that resided within the village's walls when he died, and unwittingly left them to the wolves. If the Yondaime wasn't strong enough, then Naruto vowed to be even stronger than his dad. If his dad trained twice as hard as anyone else, then Naruto would train 4 times harder. He needed to become stronger to protect Narumi, from both external and internal threats. What was once a normal life for a kid was flipped on its head. He had no time to play or socialize anymore. Training and keeping Narumi safe would be his only goal in life. When he wasn't in the academy, he would take his sister into a secluded training ground during the day and train until the sun began to set, combining babysitting with training. He worked on his kunai and shuriken throwing for hours. He would go through the taijutsu and sword katas his parents had left them for hours while Narumi took a nap. He would run laps around the training ground with Narumi on his back. He would do push-ups with her on his shoulders. Even back at the orphanage he would go through his hand seals whenever his hands were free, practicing them when he was walking around, or when the orphanage would have gatherings or meetings. He worked on his chakra control in his in-between time as well. He would work on balancing leaves with the tenketsu on his hands whenever he walked around anywhere, and would also use the chakra training exercise to entertain his sister when she was bored. Narumi loved to watch the leaves dancing above the blonde boy's hands. Whenever Naruto was alone, such as when he went to the bathroom or before he slept, he would read the ceiling books and scrolls left to him by his parents. Even at school he would read during breaks, flipping pages with one hand while doing the leaf balancing exercise with his free hand. His friends began to worry about him. At first, they tried, earnestly too, to reach out to him, break him out of his shell, and get him to play with them again, but the blue-eyed child had no time for such foolishness. One by one, they slowly stopped trying and gave him his space. Uchiha Itachi, his best friend who was the same age, but in the year above him, was the only one who stayed by his side after a few months. Before the death of Minato and Kushina, Naruto was a bright and lively child, personality mirroring his mother. He was the one who broke Itachi out of his reserved shell, and got him to act like the child he was. Afterwards, however, none of Kushina's bubbly personality remained. All that was stripped away, and what remained was his father's cold and calculating mind that Minato himself only showed when he was fighting. Itachi noticed the changes in Naruto, but he didn't mind. He himself was a quiet and reserved person by nature, so he didn't mind quietly being next to Naruto during breaks in school as Naruto immersed himself in his books and exercises. He would simply enjoy Naruto's company and would relax or work on his own things. Naruto appreciated Itachi for his loyalty immensely, even if he didn't express it outwardly. As such, Itachi and Narumi were the only ones who got to see his rare smiles and glimpses of his old personality. He eventually asked Itachi to join him in training as well. Having at least one person he trusted without question was a huge burden lifted off of Naruto's shoulders. No matter how strong anyone might be, humans are social beings, and need people in their lives. The rare occasions where Naruto was unable to be with Narumi, he asked Itachi to look after her. Itachi was a calm and gentle soul, and was an excellent caretaker of children. This really showed when his little brother Sasuke was born later in the year. The two friends were already prodigies, but as they trained together, their skills began to skyrocket. In school their grades were at the top of the class for their respective years. His training was taken to the next level when he learned the Kage Bunshin, shadow clone, jutsu from his father's scroll of seals. He was now able to train more efficiently, making a clone to watch over Narumi. Before, he used to have split his attention between training and Narumi, but now he had a way to give both tasks 100% of his attention. His Uzumaki heritage gave him chakra reserves that were greater than any in his age group, and even some older people. He was able to make around 10 shadow clones, which enabled him to work on multiple things at once. While he went to school, he had clones work on chakra control exercises, read his scrolls, hunt and forage to make extra money, and take care of Narumi. With this development, Naruto began to develop his skills at an even more accelerated pace, and he was soon advanced 1 year ahead into Itachi's class. It was here where Itachi introduced Naruto to his friend Uchiha Izumi, a pretty young girl, who had long brown hair, which she tied in a ponytail and had bangs which framed her face. She the onyx eyes of most Uchiha, and had a mole under her right eye which a lot boys said added to her beauty. Her father was not an Uchiha, so she lived outside the compound until he died in the Kyuubi attack. Itachi began to hang out with her after she fought against some bullies on his behalf, who picked on him for being so antisocial. Even at their first meeting, Naruto noticed Izumi might have some sort of feelings that went beyond friendship for Itachi. He didn't think much of it, or Izumi herself at first though. He had no time to make new friends, he thought. But slowly Izumi began to show up more and more in his life, as she gradually began to accompany Itachi when he went to meet Naruto. Having trust issues, it took a while for Naruto to open up to Izumi, but he trusted Itachi, trusted his judgment on people, so he let her tag along for their training. Izumi couldn't really keep up with the two prodigies training at 100%, so she was often left to the side to rest, where she became acquainted with Narumi. Naruto was a devoted brother, and Narumi received the love and attention of two parents from her brother. She still needed a female presence in her life though, and Izumi slowly began to fill that role. The Uchiha girl wasn't as obsessed with getting stronger like Naruto was, and started to slowly phase out the training and focused more on watching over and playing with Narumi. Naruto was wary at first, having trust issues and being overprotective of his sister, but Narumi loved Izumi and her presence, and Naruto appreciated the girl and welcomed her into his small circle of trusted people. The three classmates soon became inseparable, and Naruto soon found himself frequenting the Uchiha clan compound more and more. Itachi's mother, Uchiha Makoto, was calm and kind woman, Itachi taking after her, and enjoyed seeing the children of her deceased friend. She saw a lot of Kushina in Narumi, like she once saw in Naruto before he changed. Makoto often invited Naruto and Narumi over for dinner, granting the orphans a home-cooked meal every once in a while, which allowed them to escape the gruel served at the orphanage and gave them better nutrition. The ties the two orphans were developing with the Uchiha clan head's family wasn't all positives, however, as many of the other clans saw this development as a scheme to bind the Yondaime's children to their clan, and began to gossip. Many within Uchiha clan weren't happy with the situation either, as Narumi, or rather the Biju sealed within Narumi, was responsible for their falling reputation, and hated her presence. They kept their thoughts hidden, however, as they didn't want to cross the clan head. Still, Naruto's friendship with the Uchihas was a huge boon for an orphan without any clan to back him or train him. He met Itachi's cousin, Uchiha Shisui, who was 3 years older than them, and also a prodigy, being a chunin at the age of 10. Shisui was more like Naruto in personality before the death of his parents, and felt bad for the blonde boy, who he was fond of even before. He began to help them train whenever he wasn't on missions, and was impressed by Naruto's drive and talent. Shisui tested the two for their elemental affinities to help them train and was astounded by what he discovered. When Itachi channeled his chakra into his chakra paper, it caught fire and quickly turned to ash, which was expected for an Uchiha. The surprise came when it was Naruto's turn. When Naruto channeled chakra into his chakra paper, the paper split into 3 vertical strips showing he had a rare wind affinity. The strip on the left burned up in intense blue flames, while the strip on the right was soaked into water before falling apart. 3 affinities were almost unheard of. However, the thing that shocked Shisui the most was what happened to the strip in the middle. The strip in the middle fizzled before dissolving into nothing, and few drops of liquid that dripped onto the ground showed how caustic it was when it sizzled and dissolved all organic matter that it came across. Shisui had no idea what this was, but figured it was some sort of Kekkei Genkei, bloodline limit, that was never seen before in Konoha. He began to look through his clan's archives, seeing if there was anything that could explain this strange Kekkei Genkei displayed by Naruto. Itachi's older cousin eventually discovered it was Boil Release Futon, a rare bloodline that was rarely seen, only in Kiri, the hidden mist village. When Naruto learned of this, he asked Itachi and Shisui to keep his secret, fearing exploitation by the council, which they agreed on. Seeing Naruto and Itachi's massive potential, Shisui began to secretly take Naruto and Itachi to the clan's library to teach them the clan's collection of elemental jutsu every once in a while. Naruto continued to grow and advance his skills at a near unprecedented pace, and he soon graduated the academy at the end of the year with Itachi at the age of 7, not even a year after the death of his parents. He was put on the same genin team as his best friend, with a much older graduate, Inari Shinko, a 12-year-old girl who moved to Konoha when she was 9, and retained a foreign accent, which differentiated her from others. She had brown hair which was tied into 2 pigtails, and wore her hite on a bandana which covered the top of her hair. Their team, Team 2, was led by a jonin named Minazuki Yuki. He had short dark hair, which he tied into a small ponytail in the back, had unkempt eyebrows and a small goatee. He was known by most of Konoha as a competent sensei. He, however, had a somewhat shady history behind him. Every time a student showed more talent than himself, he found some reason to send them back to the academy, or prevent them from taking the Chunin exams. Danzo secretly arranged for Team 2 to only take missions ranked higher than C rank after 5D rank missions, as he saw their talents wasted on doing D rank missions rebuilding and repairing their village, and they built a reputation as the best genin team in years with a stellar mission record. Minazuki Yuki was secretly jealous at the obvious talent shown by his 2 male students, and took an A- rank mission, to teach them their place. When Naruto and Itachi were able to lead their team to a flawlessly executed mission, he was livid. He wanted to ban them from taking the Chunin exams taking place that year, using their recent graduation from the academy and Shinko's lack of readiness as an excuse, but both the Sandaime Hokage and Danzo objected, and made special arrangements so that Naruto and Itachi were able to take the exam as a 2-man team. Yuki was given 2 new members to his team in their place. Even with a handicap of having 1 less team member, Itachi and Naruto tore through the Chunin exams with ease, and they were promoted to Chunin within 6 months of their graduation, at the young age of 8. People began to compare the 2 prodigies with Kakashi, who graduated the academy at 5, became a Chunin at 6, and Jonin at 12. As a Chunin, Naruto was finally able to claim sole custody of his younger sister Narumi. The council hadn't expected him reach Chunin status at the age of 8, and were reluctant to hand over custody of Narumi, which was tied to custody of their inheritance as well. They were trapped by their own words however, and were forced to hand over custody to the 8-year-old blonde. At first Naruto was elated to be the sole person responsible for Narumi, and to receive his inheritance, but when he saw what remained, he was absolutely furious. He had known the council was siphoning off his inheritance, but he hadn't expected to see a mere 100,000 ryo remaining from what was once one of the largest fortunes in Hai no Kuni. 100,000 ryo was roughly equivalent to the pay of one of the harder C-rank missions. He had been planning on getting a new apartment for him and Narumi, but this threw a huge wrench in his plans. Naruto threw himself into missions to make money, taking any A rank or B rank mission he could get a hold of. He entrusted Narumi to the care of Izumi, who still hadn't graduated from the academy, and Makoto while he went on mission after mission. He even started taking a few solo B rank and A rank missions, which he used to experiment with his bloodline. There were no resources on the Boil release in Konoha, so he had to make up his own jutsu, modeled after the Suiten jutsu he knew. He discovered just how deadly it was, on a solo bandit camp extermination mission. It was getting late, sometime after dinner, and many of the bandits were drunk. Naruto had been observing them the whole day, assessing their numbers and patterns, hidden in a nearby tree, using stealth skills unseen since the second Tsuchikage. He was practically invisible using his Maiseigakur no Jutsu, hiding in camouflage technique. Naruto was cautious, and though he was an excellent direct fighter, he enjoyed using stealth, and took precautions to hide his presence, even with low-level opponents like bandits. He counted 20 bandits. There were 2 bandits on each of the 2 entrances to the camp, and the rest were in their tents, which were arranged randomly around a central campfire. The bandits were drunk, and many of them were snoozing. He looked around for innocent bystanders or captives and found none. He had seen enough of the bandits and decided it was time to strike. Without any hand seals, he formed 4 cage buncheons, and sent 2 each to hide near the 2 entrances of the bandit camp, to set an ambush for any bandit that would try to escape. He quickly flashed through 2 hand seals, fewer than what was usually required for the Kurigakure jutsu, hiding in the mist technique, and a small amount of mist began to gradually form around the camp. He had picked up the technique in a fight against a B-ranked missing Kiri Nin, who ended up dying easily to Blonde Ninja's sword in a brief clash. His version had its own deadly twist to it. Futon. Kurigakure no jutsu, whispered the blonde, hidden in his hiding spot in a nearby tree. The mist gradually grew to encompass the entire bandit camp as Naruto fed it more chakra, growing thicker and thicker, until it was almost impossible to see past your outstretched hands. Hey, who turned off the lights? One drunk bandit complained in a slurred voice. You idiot, we're outside. It's just the fog. Now give me back my bottle. His equally drunk companion replied, as he groped through the fog to find his bottle of sake, not questioning why such a dense fog would appear out of clear skies. The blonde assassin used his water chakra to manipulate and give shape to the jutsu, and used his fire chakra to adjust the pH level of the water, and he began to raise the pH level, which quickly soared past pH 15. The water in the mist became more and more alkaline, becoming caustic to the level that it would quickly dissolve organic matter in seconds. The drunk singing and laughing quickly became screams of agony, but even the screaming ended within seconds as they all succumbed to their fate. Naruto released his jutsu and blew it away with a small futon, wind release jutsu. The results were horrifying. What was once living people were now sticky brown puddles of dissolved flesh and blood. Naruto was used to killing people and wasn't hugely affected by dead bodies, desensitized to death to a degree, having been exposed to the gruesome death of his parents at a young age. This, however, was something different altogether. He felt as if he committed an atrocity, and the realization that he could literally liquefy 20 living, breathing people into a brown sludge scared him slightly. He had literally melted people to death in seconds, and there were people who thought his sweet, and unbelievably cute, baby sister was a monster, while they praised him. Idiots. He retched, but held himself back from throwing up. After collecting any valuables, after all he still needed money, and he wasn't about let a small bit of blood, or brown sludge, stop him. He decided to hide all traces of what happened here. Gokaku no Jutsu. Grand Fireball Technique, he quietly yelled out as he released a massive blue fireball which incinerated everything in the camp. When he returned to Konoha and gave his report, he left out a few key details. He decided he was going to hide his trump card for now. By the time Naruto reached 9, he finally had enough money to afford a deposit for a small 2-bedroom apartment. He threw a small housewarming party, inviting Itachi, Izumi, Shisui, Makoto, and by extension, Sasuke. Sasuke and Narumi waddled around the apartment, playing with the toys Makoto brought along for them. Thanks Izumi and Makoto Oba-san for allowing us to temporarily stay at your compound and taking care of Narumi-chan when I was away. Naruto gave the 2 women a small bow. Come on sweetie, it was the least I could do. Makoto replied as she gave him a motherly smile. I told Fugaku to adopt you and Narumi if we could, but it looks like the other clans just saw it as a bid for power. I wish we could do more for you, she said with a small scowl as she remembered hearing what happened at the council meeting from her husband. And who could refuse to look after such a little cutie? Izumi squealed as she chased after the two 2-year-olds. Naruto gave a warm smile as he looked at the Uchiha guests he had over. These were the only people he trusted fully. This was his new family. When Naruto and Itachi became 11, they were promoted to Jonin due to their flawless mission records, both as a team, and on solo missions. Other Chunins were elated whenever one of the two prodigies were assigned to their team for missions, as it guaranteed success and no deaths. Well, at least for the Konoha team. Plenty of death would be guaranteed for whoever got in their way. Sure, Naruto didn't always work well with strangers and didn't seem to trust them much, but he still carried them through most missions, and they knew they would be safe with him around. They were now officially the youngest Jonin in Konoha history, beating Kakashi's record by 1 year. Izumi also graduated that year, a year earlier than most others, who graduated at 12. Even though she was a year younger, she graduated as Kunoichi of the year. She was strong and talented after all, it was just that she looked average when compared to Naruto and Itachi. They didn't want to be Jonin senseis or anything, still being a year younger than the average age of most academy graduates, and decided to apply to join the Anbu forces, Itachi to bring honor to his clan and family, and Naruto for the increased pay. The Anbu commander stamped their applications as soon as he saw them, hands shaking and mouth drooling with excitement. Now he had the youngest prodigies ever seen, under his command. They were tested by Kakashi, who was now 18 years old, and a legendary Anbu captain. Naruto wasn't particularly close to Kakashi or anything, but he didn't really hold any grudges against him. The man was 14 when Minato and Kushina died. Did anyone really expect a 14-year-old to raise 2 kids? The Anbu captain was just a traumatized teen after all, with his mom dying at a young age, and his father committing suicide a few years later, and had lost his sensei who acted as a father figure. He had dropped by every once in a while, when they were at the orphanage, to secretly check up on his sensei's kids too. Kakashi didn't know Naruto noticed, but unbeknownst to most at the time, Naruto was a powerful sensor, and noticed his chakra signature and eventually snuck around to see Kakashi visiting with small gifts for them. Well, look who it is. Little Naruto all grown up now, huh? Kakashi lazily stated as he continued to read a little orange book. So you're gonna be the one testing us? Naruto asked, one eyebrow rising slightly as he questioned the masked shinobi. Looks like it. I'm gonna be seeing what all that talk surrounding you kids is all about. Kakashi drawled lazily as he put his book into his pocket. Alright, let's see what you two got. Naruto and Itachi looked at each other and smiled. They never smiled in front of anyone. Kakashi felt a chill going up his spine. An hour later. So how would you rate their skills, Inu? The Anbu commander asked the battered shinobi before him. Well, let me first say I should have tested them one at a time. Kakashi coughed out as he rubbed his sore arms. Itachi is a genius on the level of Shisui, maybe with even more potential. He has a complete mastery of his clan's intercepting fist style of taijutsu, and a fully developed Sharingan, which he has perfect control over. He has large chakra reserves even for a Jonin, typical of an Uchiha. His ninjutsu, flawless. Especially his Kaiden jutsu. I'd say he's easily one of the strongest in ninjutsu in the village with those flames of his. Even with his already high standards, which I'd say trumps most others in this village, I'd say his most impressive aspects are in shuriken jutsu and genjutsu. I can say without any doubt that he is the strongest genjutsu user in this village. Bar none. Well, maybe besides for the Kurama clan, but they haven't had anyone who could fully utilize their genjutsu bloodline in years. The Anbu commander was giddy with excitement at the news, but hid it well behind his mask, and asked in a calm tone. Excellent. And the Yondaimi's son, Naruto. Where to start? The kid is a vicious son of a bitch, no disrespect to Kushina-san. He's like a dangerous combination of his parents, with his kenjutsu skills outshining anyone in this village. I'd say he has potential to give the 7 ninja swordsmen of Kiri a run for their money. He combines his mother's skills with the sword with his father's speed and reaction time. If the kid knew the Hiraishin, he'd be damn near a cage-level threat at the old age of 11. The Anbu commander nearly had an orgasm. Excellent. Please continue. Kakashi began to sense the Anbu commander was starting to struggle to hide his emotions. Well, his taijutsu, shuriken jutsu, and kenjutsu were all very impressive, and paired with his unparalleled skills in stealth and sensing, honestly could have landed him as a jonin on those skills alone. The Anbu commander sensed there was more good news. But I'd say those are the least remarkable things about him. Kakashi continued. What makes you say that? The Anbu commander questioned. He has 3 elemental affinities. Kaden, Futon, and Sweden, and let me tell you, he's got a stupidly high affinity for each of them too. His fire jutsu burn blue and are hotter than anything I've faced. The sparring room we used. They're gonna need some serious repairs. And I'm not talking about just some carpentry work. He partially melted the damn stone floors. He luckily was able to limit the damage by pulling a huge amount of water out of thin air too. The Anbu commander jumped up from his seat. What? The only person who was able to do that was the Nadaime Hokage, at least from what I've heard. I haven't seen anything like this before. Not even from Kiri Nin. I'd say his wind affinity is pretty high too, but it's a rare affinity in Hai no Kuni, so I don't have much to compare it with. He also seems to have the biggest chakra reserves in this village, including the Sandaime. Kid can throw A-rank jutsu left and right as if he's throwing shuriken. Shoot. Some shuriken holsters don't even hold that many shuriken. He'll make a fine addition to the Anbu. The Anbu commander commented. I'm not finished. He's also very good at genjutsu, though not to Itachi's level, and very good at using it on the fly to create openings for his taijutsu and kenjutsu. He also seems to know some Iryo ninjutsu or something, healing any of the very small number of wounds I left on him. But the thing that makes him really special, he's a prodigy with seals. Maybe the healing thing was a seal too. Anyway, not only does he have a wide arsenal of seals, of which I'm sure I've only seen a fraction, but he can apply seals using his chakra, just as well as he can with a brush. He's definitely his parents' son. He's already above, or at least equal to, Jiraiya-sama in sealing skill. I'd wager he'll be able to unlock the Hiraishin if he really puts some effort into it. The Anbu commander sat back down at his desk and put his hands together, softly drumming the tips of his fingers together as he thought. Amazing, our pool of talent has never been so deep. We've got 3 Anbu who reached Jonin before they even reached their teens. The ANBU's reputation will reach new highs, all under my term too. I love my job, the commander said after a brief silence. Sensing the conversation was done, the ninja with the dog mask turned around and limped towards the door. If you make me spar against them again, I'm quitting. Kakashi didn't get paid enough to deal with this crap. 7 years after the Kyuubi attack, 3 years after Naruto's induction as Anbu. Oni-chan. Naruto was woken up by his little sister's shout and the excited pitter-patter of her little footsteps which rang throughout the hallway. He groaned as he turned in his bed, trying to protect his blue eyes from the rays of sunlight which threatened to wake him up for the day with finality, using his blanket to cover his face. Perhaps he could still go back to sleep. It proved futile when a red mass of excitement leapt up into the air and body slammed him. Oni-chan. It's my birthday. My birthday. I'm finally turning 7. You know what that means, right? Right. Narumi rattled out rapidly. Happy birthday, Narumi-chan. Naruto drawled out in a voice still slurred by sleepiness as he rubbed the sleep off his eyes. He shouldn't have stayed up so late last night, but he had to get all the work out of the way to clear his schedule for today. Thanks. Now hurry up and get ready. I'm hungry, Oni-chan, and you said I got to choose what we have for breakfast. Narumi nagged as she jumped up and down on her brother's bed to wake him up. Fine, fine, I'm up. Naruto sighed as he resigned himself to his fate. Would it kill Kami if he got more than 6 hours of sleep for once? Let me guess, Ichiraku's. You know it. I'm already ready to go, so you need to hurry up. Narumi continued to pester Naruto as he started to change his clothes. Did you brush your teeth? Wash your face. That's what you're gonna wear outside. Naruto went through her morning checklist. Yup, and yup. Narumi replied with a wide smile, showing she was ready to go. Fine. Put on a jacket though. It's October. Chilly outside these days. Naruto advised her, similar to how his parents once did for him. Also, you were planning to out with your hair like that. The little redhead gave a cute pout. Hey, I was waiting for you to get your lazy butt up so you can brush my hair like you always do. Naruto chuckled. He loved to rile up his little sister. Her reactions were too cute. Fine, bring me your brush while I finish up getting ready. A few minutes later, they were in the living room. Naruto sat on the couch with Narumi's brush as Narumi sat on the floor, with her back facing her older brother so he could brush her long, red hair. So, after breakfast at Ichiraku's, what do you want to do? Naruto asked as he brushed away. When Naruto wasn't away on missions, this is how they started their day, Naruto going over what he had for the day, and asking Narumi if she slept well, and asking about her plans for the day. Well, since the party starts at 5, I want to play with my friends until then. You think I can go to the rides at the festival this year? Narumi asked her brother, hoping to receive affirmation. You can hang out with your friends for a bit after breakfast. But don't go to the festival. I want you to come back home by 4 though. Naruto told her, as he finished brushing her hair and pinned her bangs to the sides to frame her face. She looked just like Kushina when she was younger. Fine. No festival then. Now let's go. Narumi jumped up and pulled Naruto out the door. At Ichiraku's. Hi old man. Ayame ne-chan. Narumi greeted cheerfully, as she sat on her designated spot. The proprietor of the ramen stand and his daughter smiled warmly at their favorite customer and greeted her back. Happy birthday Narumi. You're already 7 now. Growing up so quickly. Seems like it was just yesterday when you came to our store for the first time and had your first 3 bowls of ramen. Ayame chuckled with a hand covering her mouth as she remembered Narumi's expression when Narumi's eyes were first opened to the ambrosia of the gods that was known as ramen. Grains and pasta. Hello Tsuki-san, Ayame-san. Naruto greeted the two in a more polite greeting as he sat down next to the birthday girl. Welcome to the Ichiraku's, Naruto. The ramen chef warmly greeted. What can we get you two? I'll have 3 portions of the pork miso ramen, with extra pork, as usual. As for Narumi, it's her birthday, so can we get something special for her? The blonde Anbu asked as he made his own order. Something special, huh? Well, luckily for you, we got just the thing. How would you like the Narumi birthday special? Tsuki presented with pride in his voice. Narumi birthday special. Is that a new menu item? Naruto asked, hearing about this for the first time. Yes. That's the one I want. My birthday special. I get my own ramen named after me. This is awesome. Best birthday ever. Narumi was jumping in her chair in excitement. Well, we kinda just came up with it. Well, by we, I mean me. Anyway, it's a premium ramen with a pork broth and miso base, but with 7 servings of noodles, 7 soy marinated hard-boiled eggs, and 49 slices of chashu pork slices. It's served in the dough-kneading bowl. Tsuki beamed in pride, with a gleaming smile that was reminiscent of Konoha's resident taijutsu master. Grains and pasta. There were stars in Narumi's eyes, as she clasped her hands together, mouth ajar, drooling. This was straight out of her dreams. Literally. She had had this dream before. She pinched herself to make sure it wasn't a dream so she could actually eat this and not wake up right as she took her first mouthful. It was no dream, it was a nightmare. Luckily for her, this time she felt the pain from her pinch, indicating that this was real life. Yes. Tuki Gigi. I'll take that one. She squealed in joy. Excellent. I'll get to it right away. Ayame. Get 10 portions of noodles in the pot. Oh. By the way, it costs 14,000 ryo. The ramen chef added in sneakily. Naruto's eyes bulged, as he choked on the complimentary tea. Fu 14,000 ryo. A minus, are we still talking about ramen? The cheapest ramen on the menu cost around 500 ryo, while the more premium ramen could reach up to 1,500. I guess it's a little pricey. We could cancel that if you want. So does she want the regular miso ramen as well? Tuki asked. No. Wait. Please. Naruto ni-chan. Pretty please. Could I get the Narumi Birthday Special Supreme Ramen Deluxe 2000? Narumi begged with her puppy dog face. It's just Narumi Birthday Special. Just throwing that out there. Tuki corrected. Damn Narumi and her cute, irresistible puppy dog face no jutsu. She knew her brother's weakness and took full advantage of it. She'd make a damn fine kunoichi. Pretty please. I promise I won't be distracted during my training. I'll make sure to eat all my vegetables, and I'll clean my room too. Please. Please Oni-chan, it's my birthday. She pleaded, sticking out her lower lip as she intensified her puppy dog face. Fine. You can have the stupid Narumi Birthday Special Supreme Ramen Deluxe 2000. Naruto sighed in defeat. Coming here was a mistake his wallet would have to pay the price for. Damn that puppy dog face of hers. Yay. Thanks, Ni-chan. You're the bestest brother in the world, ya know, Narumi cheered, as she danced in her seat in victory. The real winner was Tuki and his store though, as he gave a sly smile in victory. He loved having the Namikaze Uzumaki family over. They practically accounted for 30% of their entire profit. Well, I'll get working on that right away. Tuki slinked back to the back of the stall to prepare the gargantuan meal. Naruto glared at Tuki's retreating back. If only he didn't genuinely like and care for him and Narumi and give them food for free in the past. If only he didn't make the best damn ramen in the world, he would have had words with that old man. An hour later. Thanks for the meal, old man. You should add that to the menu officially. It was amazing. Narumi Birthday Special Supreme Ramen Deluxe 2000 is gonna be a huge hit. Believe it. Narumi yelled out as she waved goodbye to Tuki and his daughter Ayame. Grains and pasta. Glad you liked it. Come back again anytime. And it's just Narumi Birthday Special. Tuki greeted. And happy birthday again, sweetheart. Ayame added. Naruto cried as he paid. Naruto lived a very frugal life, but when it came to Narumi, he always ended up spending more money than he intended to. That damn girl had 2 servings of that monstrosity, which he had to admit tasted fantastic when he tried a bite. Breakfast cost him 31,000 ryo. He and Narumi could have stayed at a premium hotel at the capital for that price. Damn Tuki. And damn that delicious Narumi Birthday Special Supreme Ramen Deluxe 2000. Alright Narumi. So, who are you going to hang out with, and where? Naruto asked, as he kept looking at his wallet to make sure it was as empty as it looked. He wasn't hallucinating, was he? He wished he was. Ya know, my friends. Sasuke-chan and Hinata-chan. Narumi informed Naruto, as if it should have been obvious. She had practically grown up with Sasuke, and the two of them were almost siblings. Narumi befriended Hyuga Hinata, the Hyuga clan heir, a little later, when she was 3, following what came to be known as the Hyuga incident. Flashback. Naruto was heading back home from the Uchiha compound, having picked up Narumi. So, did you have a good time with Makoto Oba-chan and Izumi? What did you guys do? Naruto asked his 3-year-old sister. Makoto Oba-chan read us a story, and Izumi Ne-chan did finger painting with me and Sasuke. I drew Oni-chan and me in our new house. I'll show you when we get home. We also made necklaces with some beads and noodles. Here you go, Oni-chan. Narumi happily told her brother, as she put the necklace she made around her blonde brother's neck. Thanks, Imouto. I love it. Does it make me look cool or what? Naruto replied. Narumi giggled as she replied, the necklace is pretty, since I made it, but you look like a dork. Hey, that's not nice. I'm not a dork. I'm awesome, okay. Naruto replied defensively, though jokingly. Sure. Whatever you say, Oni-chan. Narumi teased. She suddenly stopped and began to feel tense. Oni-chan, I'm getting this weird feeling. I can feel someone feeling really scared. I think they need help. Help? What do you mean? You can feel someone is scared? Naruto was confused, but he never outright dismissed his sister. Did she have some sensory abilities that allowed her to sense emotions? Yeah, someone is really scared. I can feel their worry from here. Go left at that street. I'll tell you where to go. Being a shinobi, Naruto knew not to ignore gut feelings, and decided to follow where his sister led him to. Moments later he felt a strong Raiden-natured chakra hiding in an alley nearby. He put a finger on his lips to tell Narumi to be quiet and she obeyed her brother. He suppressed his chakra signature and sneaked closer to the source, only to find the Kumo Nin ambassador who had visited the village to sign a peace treaty. A closer look showed the Kumo ambassador with a squirming sack over his shoulders. Naruto looked at Narumi, who was still on his back, for confirmation. Narumi pointed to the sack and nodded. He put Narumi down, behind the corner so she was out of sight of the Kumo Jonin, and got ready for a fight. Narumi quickly dashed off to hide behind a barrel nearby. Anime and manga. Damn those Hyuga bastards. I'll have to hide for a while until they stop searching for me. Where can I hide that would hide me from their damn Byakugan? The Kumo ambassador whispered through gritted teeth. I need to cause a distraction like I did with the explosion at the Hyuga compound, so they don't have the time to look for me. He thought to himself as he looked around for a distraction. Only the Kumo Jonin's reflexes saved the man's life, when a kunai was suddenly embedded itself deeply into the wall behind where his head had been a mere second ago. He turned his head on a swivel to look for the owner of the kunai. He instinctively raised a kunai in defense, blocking a slash from Naruto's sword. The kunai became useless after that block, however, as Naruto was channeling his wind chakra through the sword, and it nearly cut the kunai in half. He jumped backwards to gain some space and tossed his damaged kunai away. Damn, this blonde brat can't be past academy age and he's giving me a tough time. I can't even channel my lightning chakra through my kunai to strengthen them, since he's channeling wind chakra through his sword. This is a bad matchup for my Raiden. The Kumo kidnapper thought. Naruto didn't give the man more time to think as he charged in towards the Kumo Nin at a blinding speed, intending to cut him to pieces. However, his opponent was a Jonin, and the head Nin of Kumo, second in command to the Raikage. He dodged most of Naruto's initial slashes and used the Kawarimi Jutsu, replacement technique, on a nearby barrel, switching places with the barrel. He looked down and saw a little girl with red hair looking back at him with a scared look in her violet eyes. The Kumo Jonin's head was instantly reminded of a girl that Kumo tried to kidnap, decades ago. He had been part of the squad that was waiting to link up with the team that went to kidnap the little Uzumaki girl, and provide reinforcement if they were pursued. The team never arrived. At least not alive. That damn blonde Minato had to get involved. He suddenly saw the parallel between that incident and the predicament he found himself now. This could be his chance to snatch up this girl, who had to be the Uzumaki's brat, and complete the mission they had failed all those years ago. The only person in his way was probably an offspring of that thrice-damned Yondaime Hokage, if looks were anything to go by. He dropped the sack and grabbed the scared redhead, and put a kunai to her throat. Stop, or this girl gets it. He threatened Naruto. Naruto froze. That bastard. How dare he use Narumi as a hostage? He was not going to give this man a quick death. The Kumo head nin yelled at Naruto, "If you want this girl to live, walk away, you little brat. You're 100 years too young to be fighting me." Naruto's face mirrored Minato's steely gaze, often the last thing seen by their enemies before they died. He stealthily formed one-handed seals behind his back, setting off a chain of jutsus in conjunction. He first formed a Kage Bunshin, and consecutively used Kawarimi twice to seamlessly replace himself in a third person, and cast a henge on himself in his new location. The head nin of Kumo underestimated the blonde, and didn't see any of this, as he was busy keeping an eye out for others, considering the blonde to be stalling while the real help arrived. He also cast the Kokuangyo no Jutsu, Bringer of Darkness technique, a genjutsu that blocked the sense of sight, on Narumi, so she would only see darkness all around her. He didn't want her to see the gore that was about to take place. Fine. I surrender, just let her go. Naruto's clone said as he dropped his mother's sword, and threw his hands up in the air as he slowly walked backwards. Smart move, brat. Though I never said I'd let her go. She'll be coming with me. The Kumo nin declared as he reached for the squirming sack. Narumi, hearing her brother give up, and the Kumo nin stating his intent to kidnap her, while not being able to see anything, began to panic. When she was jerked closer by a rough pull from the Kumo Jonin, she snapped. A chain shot out of her back and stabbed the surprised Kumo Jonin through the shoulder of the arm he was using to hold her. Using the momentary pause of the Kumo nin's shock as an opening, Hinata cut her way out of the sack she was in with a sword and struck the Kumo nin twice. An arm and a leg hit the floor. The Kumo nin looked at the meek 3-year-old Hyuga heiress in shock, only to see her transform back into Naruto. If you left my sister out of this, I'd have given you a quick death. This is all on you. He flew through one-handed seals and whispered, "Futon, Mizoripa boil release, water trumpet," and spat out a stream of water on the downed Kumo nin. The man screamed in excruciating pain, as he slowly felt his body burn and dissolve away. Naruto had made sure not to make the jutsu too caustic, so his sister's kidnapper could feel more of the pain. The Kumo ambassador's flesh was dissolved, revealing his dissolved muscle tissue and bones in some places, but he wasn't quite dead yet. Naruto decided to finish the job and get rid of the evidence of his bloodline when he was sure the man had suffered sufficiently for his crimes. Anime and manga, Kaden. Ruka no Jutsu, Fire Release, Dragon Flame Technique. He yelled out, and a stream of blue flame incinerated the dissolving man, which left nothing behind, but burned, brittle bones, which crumbled in the wind. He released the genjutsu from Narumi and ran over to see if she was okay. Narumi, are you okay? Did he hurt you? Ni-chan, I was so scared. I thought that bad man was gonna take me away forever. She cried out as she buried herself in her brother's chest. The blonde Chunin hugged his sister to comfort her. Shish. Don't worry. He won't ever hurt you again. You're safe now. Your Ni-chan will protect you. Promise. Naruto's clone walked over with a scared Hinata, who the clone had been hiding to also spare her from the violent scene. Thank you Shinobi-san for rescuing me. Hinata said in a quiet, still scared voice. It was nothing. She's the one you should be thanking anyway. I wouldn't have known you were in danger if she didn't sense your distress. Naruto said as he pointed to his sister. Thank you. I didn't get your name. Hinata said to her red-haired savior. Sniffle. I'm Narumi. And this is my Oni-chan, Naruto. Introduced Narumi, as she wiped the tears from her eyes. Thank you Narumi-san, Naruto-san. How can I repay you? Asked the Hyuga clan heiress. Her father had drilled into her young mind that a Hyuga must never be in debt. Wanna hang out with me sometime? Narumi offered as a small smile began to form on her face, even as her eyes were still teary. Hang out. Like play together? Hinata asked, making sure she understood what she was being asked. After all, Hyugas didn't use such low-class vernacular often. Yeah, play together and stuff. We could be friends. Narumi asked hopefully. She didn't have many friends, and was desperate to make more. Hinata was also a very lonely child, and didn't have many friends her age, due to her clan being so uptight. She was happy to make a friend. That sounds nice, and Narumi-san. She stuttered, but had a small smile on her face. Narumi's smile reached her ears when the pale-eyed girl agreed to be her second friend ever. Sweet. We can play at the park with Sasuke-chan. She squealed in joy, though her eyes weren't dry yet. Naruto smiled at the scene, happy for the two young girls, when the Hyuga finally appeared. Hinata-sama. Thank Kami-sama you're safe. A 12-year-old Hyuga main family member, and Hinata's caretaker, named Ko said as he ran over to see if she was alright. Hyuga Hiyashi, the clan head, and Hyuga Hazashi, his twin brother and head of the branch family, arrived shortly after. Hinata, you're alright, the Hyuga clan head said in relief as he swept up his daughter in his arms. Ootou-sama. These two people rescued me from the bad man. Hinata explained to her father. Hiyashi looked at the blonde Chunin and his sister, and looked over to the charred and crumbling bones of the Kumo Nin, the only identifying remains of the man being the severed arm and leg that lied close by. Thank you for rescuing my daughter, Namikaze Uzumaki-san. The Hyuga owes you their gratitude. Let me know if there is anything we can do for your service to us. Hiyashi said as he bowed slightly. Naruto remembered this man, the man who set off the chain of events that had him and Narumi grow up in an orphanage, and enabled the council to steal their inheritance. He hated the Hyuga clan head, but didn't want to get in the way of his sister's new friendship with Hinata. I guess you could start by letting them play together every once in a while. Naruto said in a neutral tone, not even bothering to look directly at the man. I suppose I can allow Hinata to spend time with the Q with your sister. Under proper supervision, of course. Hiyashi answered back, managing to cover up his slip of the tongue. Anime and manga. Naruto heard the slip, and was seething inside, but held his tongue. He simply nodded. If that's all, we will be heading back to the compound. It has been a long night for Hinata after all. Hiyashi said as the Hyuga clan members all turned to leave. Naruto and Narumi also left, after Naruto explained what happened to the Anbu and the Uchiha military police force that came to investigate and clear up the site. Naruto was fuming inside at the way Hiyashi looked at Narumi, but hid his feelings, not wanting to spoil Narumi's good mood. I finally made a new friend Oni-chan. Narumi was practically skipping the whole way back home. Naruto's anger died down looking at his sister's happiness. This is what he sacrificed everything for. To make sure his sister could be happy. His mind snapped back to what had happened and mused about Narumi unlocking her chakra chains. She was truly his mother's daughter. His face showed a smile as he began to think of training regiments for her. Meanwhile, Hiyashi glared at Hazashi as they walked back. You will be punished for your failure to watch Hinata properly. He whispered through gritted teeth as they walked back. Hazashi said nothing. End flashback. Right. The Dujutsu duo. Alrighty then. Have fun. And remember, come back home by 4 so we can get ready for your party, okay? Naruto reminded Narumi, who nodded and ran off to meet her friends. Naruto went back home to set up for the party. At 5 p.m., the guests began to show up at the door of the Namikaze Uzumaki siblings' house. They piled up their gifts at the end of the table that held the food and drinks, and the kids began to play the party games Naruto had prepared during the afternoon, while the adults and shinobi talked with each other. Thanks for coming Makoto Oba-chan, Naruto greeted the Uchiha matriarch. I wasn't about to miss our little Narumi's 7th birthday party, Makoto replied with her warm smile that reminded Naruto of his own mother. She was quite excited to present her gift to Narumi-chan after all. Came Itachi's calm, slightly monotone voice. He can hardly tell if you're being sarcastic with your tone like that, Itachi, Shisui joked, and Izumi agreed. I try to get him to show a bit more emotion, but it's like trying to teach a cat to bark. Izumi complained in good nature. Kakashi stood in the corner watching everything going on, though appearing to read his orange book of smut. Being the only other non-Uchiha guest, he was approached by Hyuga Ko, who had accompanied Hinata to the party as her chaperone. Must you read that smut at a children's party? I do not want Hinata-sama to be corrupted at a birthday party. Ko asked Kakashi. Interesting way to start a conversation, Hyuga-san. Kakashi replied as he put the book away. I guess you found a way to read your collection when she's not around then, huh? What? I don't own a collection. Ko said, flabbergasted. How did this man know? He was sure nobody was around when he went to the bookstore. Your reaction told me everything I needed to know. Kakashi replied with his characteristic eye smile. The guests were having a good time, besides for Ko, who became paranoid of people finding out his secret. Hyuga were supposed to be dignified after all. His eyes darted nervously around Naruto in Narumi's living room. They know. They all know, he thought to himself. It was starting to get late, and became time to cut the cake and open presents before everyone went home. Sasuke decided to give his gift first, and he went over to pick an envelope. Narumi tried to guess what it was, and Naruto hoped it was money. When the birthday girl opened it up, she found 10 prepaid coupons for ramen at Ichiraku's. Anime and manga. Sasuke-chan. How's anyone gonna top this? I love it. Narumi yelled out in true appreciation. Naruto was disappointed that it wasn't money, but changed his mind when he realized it was 10 less times he had to open up his wallet for her ramen addiction. Well, more like 2 less times. She'd probably use 5 of them at a time. HNNN. Also, it's Sasuke-kun. I'm not a little child anymore, so don't call me Sasuke-chan. The young Uchiha boy answered back. Sure thing Sasuke-chan. Narumi replied cheekily, causing the boy to scowl. The adults laughed at the scene. Narumi's second friend decided to go next, and gave Narumi a small box that turned out to hold an expensive set of hair accessories, which Narumi immediately took out of the box to put on her hair. She loved it and gave Hinata a warm hug, bringing a smile on the Hyuga-era's face. Next was Izumi, who gave her a set of pretty, but still practical clothes that she could wear when she entered the academy soon. Itachi gave her a shiny new set of kunai and shuriken, and Shisui gave her some scrolls for D-rank jutsu she could work on when she found out her elemental affinity. Kakashi gave her a wooden training sword, so she could get started on her mother's style of kenjutsu. Makoto came next with her gift. It was a very motherly gift. Not very exciting for Narumi but very necessary. They were all the textbooks she would need for the academy, as well as other supplies. Narumi still appreciated the gesture, and not being a spoiled little brat, she thanked her warmly with a hug. Naruto appreciated the gift a lot more, meaning he wouldn't have to spend money on her academy supplies. Score. Finally, it was Naruto's turn. Narumi was excited to see what he prepared this year. He always went above and beyond to get her nice gifts. Since you're entering the academy in the following spring, I decided it was time to start teaching you our parents' style of sealing. This is part of their legacy, you know. He presented her with an assortment of books and scrolls on sealing for beginners, as well as a sealing kit. She had never met her parents, and was starved for any knowledge, story, anecdote, or connection to her parents. She was very excited to connect with her parents in a practical way. She ran over to hug him. Thanks, Ni-chan. I'm gonna be the best sealing master ever. Even better than you. The real surprise came after, however. That's not all, Naruto continued, hiding a knowing smile as he walked over to a closed closet. Narumi wondered if he hid a gift in there as she walked closer in anticipation. You ready? Naruto asked, and Narumi nodded. She was not prepared for what was next. When Naruto swung the door open, the closet was revealed to be filled to the brim with all sorts of instant ramens, collected from every corner of the elemental nations, ranging anywhere from spicy ramen from Suna, curry ramen from Kumo, green tea ramen from Ta no Kuni, land of tea, goat ramen from Iwa, seafood ramen from Kiri, and a plethora of other exotic ramens. Narumi's eyes bulged before she passed out. She had a huge smile on her face. Best day ever were the last thoughts that went through her mind.